Hey guys, here's the study material for the first exercise that we're going to do in our watercolor portraiture class. We're going to go over the proportions of the face, and then we're going to use a simple line and wash method to paint in some of the details. So what you'll need for this is a high H pencil, an eraser, some watercolors, I'm using Anna Linky, and a pen, a black pen. So let's start with the dimensions of the face, and I'm just using plain drawing paper for this. I'm going to be making these marks dark so that they show up on the screen, but you should be making these marks as lightly as possible. So using that high H pencil. And I'm going to start by simply drawing an oval shape. And do this very, very lightly. Okay, halfway down the oval, I'm going to put a line, and this is where the eyes are going to be. So I'm just going to make a note of that along the side. So from the top of the head to the bottom, the eyes are at 1/2. Now the other measurement that we need is the face is going to be about 5 eyes wide if you have one eye in the middle. So if we start from the middle and go to either side, it should be about 5 eyes wide. If it's not, just edit your oval to make it that width. Now the second set of measurements we're going to do are going to come from the hairline. The hairline is going to be just about, a quarter, an upper quarter of this half of the head down. And then from the hairline, this part can be a bit tricky. So not from the top of the head like the eyes, from the hairline down, we're going to divide this area into thirds. So 1/3 is going to be hairline to eyebrows. 1/3 is going to be eyebrows to bottom of the nose. And the rest is to the chin. So that's 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Now, what I find to be the most useful notes here are that the sides of the nose are aligned with the inner corner of the eyes. And I find this super useful because this often holds true no matter what direction the face is looking in. Whereas these measurements will alter based on the perspective that the face is in. So they'll get closer and closer together as the head tilts, so they won't be an even third. But if you go from the inner corner of the eye, you can place the sides of the nose. From the eyebrows down to the nose, we're going to do a ball around 1/3 of that space. So about 1/3, and this is going to be where we're going to organize the features of the nose. And then for the eyes, we're going to come in with a simple lemon shape. So a larger little half lemon above the line, and then a smaller one below. And then we're going to add in the eyes. So remember that you're not going to see the entire iris. You're only going to see part of it. So we're not putting the full circle in, we're putting half of it. You can finish this circle if you want to, just make sure that you have the placement correct. And let's start to create a nose out of this. So I'm just going to do a line here, 2 angles going up for the nostrils. And then we can carve out the area of the nostrils by just moving in here from side to side. Okay, and now another detail is that from the pupils down, so I'm just doing half of the pupil, I'm not doing the full pupil because we'll come back to this later. If we move straight down, we're going to get to the sides of the mouth. Now the sides of the mouth, if we divide the space from the bottom of the nose to the chin in thirds as well, the mouth is going to be centered around the first third, this line here. Now this will vary quite a bit from person to person in terms of size, whether someone's upper lip or lower lip is different, so pay attention to details like those. But by and large, the sides of the lips are going to align with the pupils. So around this line, we're going to arrange the upper lips in a bow shape. They kind of taper down like this. And then the lower lip a little bit above this line here. And then we're going to add in some eyelids. And remember, you're doing this super, super lightly. And we're also going to add in the eyebrows, which are going to be just almost right above the inner corner of the eye. They're going to cover about 2/3 of the eye and then tilt in the direction that the plane of the head is turning. So about 2/3, tilting with the plane of the head. Now the ears are going to roughly align with the top of the eyebrows and the bottom of the nose. So we can also, moving across here, place the ears. And from here, we can start to carve out the features of the face. So depending on which way the face is tilted, you're going to see the jawline, and a good landmark is to look for where each side of the jaws are in relation to one another and in relation to the mouth. And the face is going to taper a little bit more up this way. And we can start to add in some hair. Remember that this is just a base pencil drawing, so these marks should be super, super light. We're going to be going over them in pen, so they shouldn't be particularly apparent. Okay, so on to color, and I'm going to quickly erase some of the marks that I've used to align these different sections, which you can do as well if you find that any of your marks are showing up. Okay, now skin is essentially brown. It's brown that is diluted to different amounts, that has some tints to it, and that sometimes is transparent, which means we can see some of the blood coming up from under the skin. In terms of different skin tones, it really just depends how much you dilute your brown values. When you're buying watercolors with the intention of working on portraiture, some useful ones to look for are burnt sienna, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre, as well as, ultramarine blue or another cooler value. Different artists have different palettes that they use for skin colors, but these are some of the earth tones that are commonly used. And you're also going to want to have a simple red, yellow, and blue. That can be cadmium red, ultramarine blue, and cadmium yellow medium. So now mixing up these colors, I'm using the Anna Linkies, which is going to simplify things for us as a class and also for me. With watercolor portraiture, if you're working quickly from life, you don't want to have to be scrambling around to choose the correct colors from your palette without instinctively knowing where they are. So I find that this palette, this Anna Linky palette, is useful because I can just go straight in and the two colors I need are side by side. I'm going to mix together a bit of brown and some red. Make a mark here. That's going to be my darkest value. Then I'm going to move this into a different well. Dilute, dilute, dilute. until I get a slightly lighter value, or sorry, a significantly lighter value, not slightly lighter. And then I'm going to, from this darker one, move it over here and add in the teeniest bit of phthalo blue, which is this blue, the second from the top. That's going to be a cooler value. With the clean brush, I'm also going to take some of that darker color and move it to another well, and I can add the tiniest bit of yellow to it. The yellow is stronger than the other pigments, so you're using much less of it, and you might need to dilute this even more, and that's going to create a... So the video cut out there, but I'm saying that this is going to create the lightest tone that we need to use here. And you're going to want to erase most of your pencil marks so that they're not really visible. But I'll keep mine here so you can see the areas that I'm going into, even though on your paper, really just try to erase this the best you can so that only you can see it. And a key with this line and wash technique is leaving very, very large white areas, so highlight areas. So we're not going to cover too much ground. I'm going to move in with some of this lighter color along the forehead. And along the cheek. So I'm just starting with my lightest value. I'm being very loose in my marks. I'm not filling in the whole area. So I'm just giving the idea of color, sort of like I'm putting color swatches. Now I'm going to take the cooler color and to come in certain areas, like the inner corners of the eyes, and the sides of the eyelids, as well as a little bit on the top of the eyelids. You can even do a bit underneath. And now for the side of the nose, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that darker value on either side and do a little bit of the darker value underneath the nose. But again, we're keeping this really loose. I'm also going to come in a little bit more with that darker color along the side of the face. It's a little bit too dark. If it's too dark, you can pick it up with your brush just by going like this and move it, if you want, to a different part of the face. So I'm just moving this along the sides of the face, and I'm going to come in and get the mouth. For the lips, I'm going to come in with that darker color, the concentrated color, and start by going either side, then moving upwards. And blending. And finally, I'm going to use a little bit of that lighter tone with a tiny bit of yellow added to it along one side of the bridge of the nose, just to add a little bit of interest. Oh, and I'm also going to go back to that cooler color and just get the underside of her face. And if you need to mix up a little bit more, just remember it's red, brown, and a tiny bit of phthalo blue. And now I'm going to add a little bit more brown to that brown and phthalo blue mixture and just get in a couple of strokes to show where the hair is going to be. as well as the eyebrows. Now finally I'm going to get the ears, just with this mid kind of flesh tone. A little bit of the kind of tear duct at the bottom of the nose. I'm just getting a bit of color down here, just really lightly. I'm being just super careful to preserve the highlight areas. And now I'm going to add a little bit of that phthalo blue to the brown and dilute it a huge amount and come in with the eyes, leaving a highlight on the pupil, so leaving a light area. And you can dab off any excess. All right, now we need to wait for this to dry. I'm just going to use a hairdryer to simplify that. And we're going to use a variety of brush marks to put in the details with our pen now for that line and wash technique. So moving in with the eyes, I'm just going to refine their shape a little bit more. You can also get the pupils in, mark out the iris. I'm going to use the brush part of the pen to get a few bits of the eyebrows down, just to bring up that contrast. And also the sides of the eyes for the eyelashes. And then for the nose, just going to mark out some space. You can come in with black to get the nostrils. And then the lips. We'll make it a little bit darker on the lower lip. Then I'm gonna use the brush to get some of the sides of her face. Some more of the hair and the ears. And you can create a variety of brush marks to add interest to your portrait. You can also get the ear here. And now I'm going to go in and intensify any areas that I want to with a little bit of brown. So I'm going to come in and get the iris, just tint that with the brown. Also dilute that brown to make the eyelids a little bit more intense. Don't know why this is blurred. Hold on. Get a little bit of this brown underneath the eye. This highlight is a little bit too intense up here, so I'm just going to make that a little bit less and also come over the eyes so that that's rounded out a bit more. I'm going to darken this area under her chin a little bit more. Can always darken up the inner corners of the cheeks and get a little bit more red to mix with the brown to emphasize the shadow on the upper lip. I'm also going to make the nose a little bit more rounded by adding some tiny bit of yellow, little bit of red, and some brown together. And then diluting this quite a bit. Just make the area directly under her nose a little bit darker. As well as the area just in the inner corner of her eyes. Okay, and I'm going to leave that there for now. We don't want to overwork this for a quick line and wash portrait. And then we'll be ready to move on to the watercolor paper.